Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by a giant mess. That's me, the real cinch Neal Lynch. I'm a former fourth-string college quarterback and middle relief pitcher with a film and media studies degree. And now I'm a single dad who likes to talk Mets baseball, Giants football, movies, TV, and comedy. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the New York Metros 2024 regular season. We'll do a little recap and review of what we saw over the last 2 months and give you a breakdown of how we got to a wild card berth. That's right. You heard it here. I am ecstatic that we are in the playoffs and there are some good vibes going into this postseason as opposed to some previous postseasons. Looking at you, 2022. And then we will do a preview of our upcoming wild card series against the Milwaukee Brewers. History would tell you that we don't have a very good probability of making it to the next round. But I'm here to tell you that if you haven't heard, the postseason, it's a whole new season. So without further ado, let's get it started up in y'all. All right, your New York Mets, my New York Mets, our New York Mets have done it. They have defied the odds. We were told that we wouldn't be competitive this year. We told Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, we're not going to be competitive in 2024. And we went out and we got ourselves a wild card berth in the postseason after a severely disappointing 2023 and a 2022 that just fizzled. Was a truly magical season from start to almost finish. 100-win season, and then you kind of fall apart against the Braves toward the end there, and then you don't show much against the Padres. So this one's different. I think I said in my preview of this season, don't be completely shocked that we win 86 games and that we're in the hunt for the playoffs towards the end. And by God, Neil Stradamus strikes again. I was spot on with that. You wouldn't know it from the beginning of the season, but I don't know that I've ever seen a season turn like this. And coming from a lot of unexpected sources and unexpected contributors along the way, people that were just not on our radar or that we didn't think too highly of at the beginning of the season. And all of a sudden they are like key components to our success. Last time we talked Mets was early-ish August. We proceeded to get swept in most horrendous fashion by the Mariners in Seattle. We were shut out twice. We only scored one run in that whole series. We lost 2 of 3 to the friggin' A's, formerly of Oakland, possibly of Sacramento, leaning towards Vegas. I don't know. They don't have a home anymore. So sad what's going on with the Athletics and with the A's. Oakland as a whole, you got to feel for them. They just keep losing sports teams. Sucks big time. So if we did miss the playoffs, I think that's one series you look back at and you said, Jesus, well, it's only one series, but every game is important, even though there's 162 of them. And if we could just pull out one more of those, then, luckily we're not in that boat, but Jesus, that A's series could have been our undoing. We then had 2 walk-off wins in 3 games against the Orioles. You want to talk about a friggin' roller coaster with this Mets season. To look as bad as we did against Seattle and Oakland, and then just to turn around against Baltimore, one of the best teams in the American League. Now, granted, Baltimore was a little banged up. So we were facing them at a pretty opportune time. But to do it the way we did it, with 2 walk-off wins in 3 games, that was huge. We then split with the Padres. Probably could have taken 3 or 4 there, but end up splitting the series. We win 2 of 3 from the D-backs, which this is now late August. Humongous series win because we get the tiebreaker. My God, if we did not get the tiebreaker, it's amazing how, it's just, you think, oh, well, why would a series in late August or why would a series in mid-August matter when it comes down to the wire? And it did. And it does because we win that series, because we get the tiebreaker, we end up finishing with the same record as them when we get the last spot, the 6th seed. And there are people crying tears for Arizona. I am not crying tears. I do feel bad for them, but considering what we had to go through in that last week or so of the season, I think we earned it. We deserved it. After that Diamondback series in late August, we then sweep the Sox, both the red and the white. This is when we started to get a little hot. Took 2 of 3 from the Reds, 2 of 3 from the Blue Jays. We didn't drop 2 of 3 of the Phillies in Philly. We were kind of feeling ourselves going into that series against Philadelphia. Our offense had started to wake up, starting to produce a lot more runs. We had the blowout win in game 1. We led in game 2 and we blow the lead there. And then we have the walk-off loss in game 3. So that was one of them. And I tweeted this out. There's one more gut-wrenching series that I've had, or that I've seen against Philly, where it's like playoff lives are on the line and it looks like we have them on the ropes. And I guess that's the signature. It's kind of like the trademark of the Phillies of recent years, at least in the Bryce Harper era, is like they're never dead. They might look like they're sleepwalking through 6-7 innings, but then they're going to wake up and once your bullpen starts to come out. So, which we also had a tendency to do that toward later in the season. We swept the Nats with a walk-off win in game 1 and then blowouts in games 2 and 3, 10 runs each. And then we win 3 of 4 from Philadelphia. That was a huge series at Citi Field. Diaz had big back-to-back saves, and it looked like, okay, now the mojo is a full go. We have the vibes are immaculate and everything is going in our favor. And then we go to Atlanta, the House of Horrors. We lose 5-1 against Schwellenbach, who I have not been paying much mind to. I figured, they're missing Strider, Acuna's out, Austin Riley's down. They're down and out, right? They've had injuries all season, but yet they're still there. And even though that we've been kind of neck and neck with them in the wild card race, it was like, this is not the same old Braves, right? And then we lose 5-1. Schwellenbach just shut us down. He's been amazing against us. I hope we never have to see him again this postseason. And, Severino looked uneven. We'll get to his, he is the game 1 start against the Brewers, so we'll get to that preview a little more into his stats as we get into that preview. But not a great effort from Severino. And then we lose 2 of 3 in Milwaukee, our other House of Horrors. And we just can't win in Milwaukee, just like we can't win in Atlanta. This was really disconcerting, and this had a lot of, hand up. It's hard not to think about 07 and 08. It's really hard not to think about, because I believe we were facing the Brewers in 2008 towards the end there, where it all started to unravel. It was like, oh, this is happening fucking again. Again, this is happening. And what was really upsetting for a lot of Mets fans was the fact that Milwaukee had already clinched the 3 seed. They really didn't have anything to play for, and they came out and they're playing their balls off. Whereas some of the other teams, I believe it was Arizona and Atlanta, the other 2 teams that we're battling with for the wild card spots, the 2 reigning wild card spots, are facing, the Royals and Padres, who I think had already clinched. So they're not going full tilt. And so, but yeah, we have Milwaukee deciding that they were gonna lay it all on the line to beat us. And so I saw Mets fans complaining about that, and I was like, yeah, but this is like there's making the playoffs and then there's winning in the playoffs. It's great to make the playoffs, but do you want to win the playoffs? This is a team that we've struggled against, a very good team, NL Central Division champions. And like, we can't just expect them to roll over and die and let us win. Like, this is a good test for us. And we kind of failed. I mean, when we did win the last game 5-0, you could see Milwaukee they weren't going at the same speed as they were in games 1 and 2. They really dialed it back, and they decided that they wanted to rest some guys. So I don't know that was a really good indication of like what we can do against them. Games 1 and 2 were, and they weren't exactly a huge confidence boost. So we have to go back to fucking Atlanta the day after the regular season is supposed to end for a doubleheader. And in game 1 of 2, we play one of the greatest games of all time, at least in Mets history, in the regular season. Probably recency bias, but you try and like think back to a lot of like must-win games in franchise history, and it's like they're not a lot, especially with your playoff hopes on the line. So yeah, I would say that was one of the best, if not the best, regular season game, considering the ramifications, the consequences, and the circumstances of my memory. I'm now 43. Started watching 85, 86. So yeah, that was huge. And friggin' Schwellenbach again shuts us down for 7 innings, and then we explode for a 6-run 8th inning. Diaz blows the lead in the 8th. Francisco Lindor, our captain, I know he's not wearing the C, but he's a captain, blasts the go-ahead home run in the top of the 9th, and then Diaz forces himself out there on the mound, defies orders, goes against what the coaching staff wanted, and goes back out on the bump and gets the save in the bottom of the 9th to win 8-7 to clinch a playoff spot. So now game 2, we kind of that was the understanding, right? Was that whoever wins game 1 is going to kind of take the foot off the pedal for game 2, rest some guys, and get mentally prepared for the wild card, right? To which I agree to a certain extent. Now, the way that the Mets kind of let their foot off the pedal in game 2 was like, whoa, like we're swinging at everything. Like we just want to get the fuck out of here. But yet Joey Lucchesi, called up specifically for this start, not going to be on the postseason roster, was struggling in AAA. They showed his numbers in AAA, and it was like, hey, he's got an ERA of almost 5, and like he's got a walks problem. So I was like, okay. And we're supposed to face Chris Sale. So this is going to be a blowout win for Atlanta. So like Arizona must be like, so pissed off that this is what's rolling out. And then we find out that Chris Sale has a back problem or something to that effect. Can't go. They pitched this guy with a majestic mullet, Grant Holmes or something like that, who then shuts us down. Lucchesi pitches well, only gives up 1 run, and we ultimately lose 3-0. But man, we did have opportunities to win that game. Even with guys resting Lindor, I thought we would rest Nimmo. I thought maybe even rest Alonso. I thought we would rest a lot. I thought we would rest a lot more of our starting lineup. And instead we decided to play Alonso. Like Winker did not play, which was interesting in the booth. Gary, Keith, and Ron noted that. Like, it's weird that Winker's not in the lineup. So maybe there's something there physically or mentally that Mendoza thinks that he just needs some time, some alone time, some thinking time. Get those thoughts in order. So we do lose that, and Arizona is eliminated based on that. So, sucks for the D-backs, the Snakes, the Serpents. I did like their run last year, and I pointed to that repeatedly when I gave the preview for this season, and even throughout all the trials and tribs throughout this season, I kept pointing to the Diamondbacks. So they were an inspiration for the Metros in 2024. So we're in and we get the 6th seed. Now, I don't know if this is a hot take, but considering our head-to-head records and considering our playoff history, I think we should have gone a little bit harder in game 2. I think to knock out the Braves would be huge. We're better against the Diamondbacks if they get in. We suck against Milwaukee, and we're better against San Diego. And I'd rather get revenge against San Diego for eliminating us in 2022. So it's like I would rather have gotten the 5 seed and go to San Diego and do to them what they did to us in 2022. I do not want to go to back to Milwaukee, where we just had a pretty poor showing in that 3-game set. So I wonder if that decision will come back to bite us. But then again, you could point to, and many have, the fact that Major League Baseball kind of fucked us with the whole hurricane thing. Now, Hurricane Helene, awful, dude. My family's in South Carolina. They weren't. I mean, they were affected, but not affected to the point that North Carolina was, where it's like the city of Asheville is just completely underwater, and really, really devastating stuff. So there's real lives at stake, and so hopefully everyone's donating and providing relief there. But to postpone 2 games and move it to a doubleheader the day before the wild card starts is a little outrageous. It's a little like we couldn't figure out another game plan here. We couldn't figure out another way. And if we do move it to a neutral site, we do move it to a safer site that's still within commuting distance of the Atlanta metropolitan area. It's still kind of a home game. So I can understand from Atlanta's perspective, it's like, well, we have these 2 home games. Our home games are an advantage to us. You guys suck in our ballpark. Why would we go to another ballpark where it's like you don't have the same advantage? So I can see it from the Braves' perspective, but from and the Braves still have to play a wild card today. So it's like, I think the Mets are more screwed in that situation, but the Braves aren't like the Braves are also impacted as well. So looking month by month, May was our worst month, 9-19. We had a .321 winning percentage. And, it's every broadcast. We have the best record in Major League Baseball since June. The best, the most wins. And to think that we were 1 win away from not going to the playoffs, that would have driven me nuts. That would have driven me insane. I would have gone off the deep end. I don't know that I would have been able to handle that. The fact that we were playing like June alone, 16-8 with a .667 winning percentage, 153 runs scored. June was like, we usually have a June swoon, June gloom. No June swoon. There was a June boom. And then July, took us, it was not as successful, 17-10 with a .630 winning percentage. August was a bit tricky. It's a bit tough. That was, I remember pointing to that stretch coming up when I did the last episode. And I said, this is where we see if we have it or not. If we can get through this and survive this stretch, I think we'll be all right. And we ended up going 15-13 and keeping our heads above water and in the race. And in September, 17 wins, the most of any month in the 2024 season, 17-9. The offense had some decent games here and there, but it was really our starting pitching and our bullpen that stepped up and helped us to win games. .654 winning percentage to finish things out, and that's how you got to do it. Looking at our splits from the season, we had obviously a much better second half than we did in the first half. In 9-inning games, we're 81-65, or even in extra inning games, 8-8. But in 1-run games, and this is where it matters, we were 28-16. So that to me is a hallmark, right? That's a good indication that you have a pretty decent team. When it gets to be 1-run game, are you able to pull those up? Are you able to, hold down the fort, or are you able to make the push and go ahead? So very exciting. I thought I would take a look at the top 12 players on the Mets roster by WAR for the 2024 season. There should be no question or mystery surrounding who had the highest WAR for the Mets. It was Francisco Lindor, our captain. He led the team in just about every offensive category, and this was his best year as a Met. As a Met, this 2024 was his best in a Mets uniform. He had the most doubles, most home runs, highest batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, and total bases, highest OPS plus of his, and that's as a Met. So of his 4 seasons now with the Mets, most doubles, most homers, highest batting average, highest OPP, slugging percentage, and total bases. And then of his career, he had the highest OPS plus. He was pretty much an average shortstop in 2021, his first year with the Mets. And I think that really rubbed people the wrong way, because we had made a traded away 2 pretty likable, popular prospects. Then signed him to a massive contract extension. And that has been the running narrative with Lindor, is that he's not worth it. Well, we'll get to his worth at the tail end of this Francisco Lindor segment, just to show you what we're dealing with. But yeah, 2021 did not do him any favors. It was a huge disservice to his likability or popularity with the fan base, and his reputation with the fan base. You had the Javi Baez thumbs down fiasco. So it was not a great way to introduce yourself to the Mets fan base. He missed around 40 games. And then since then, he's just been getting better and better. He had the 30 for 30 season last year when he had a bone spur. He then, even after coming, when he went down with the back injury, we thought, oh, this is where the season derails. This is where the season goes off the rails. And we collapsed, just like we always do down the stretch. And then we ended up going like 7-1 without him, thanks to Luis Acuna and Jose Iglesias. And then he comes back from the back injury and is still putting the team on his back, his injured back, putting us on his back and carrying us. In terms of where he ranked and across the league, across the majors, he was 8th in WAR, 6th in offensive WAR, 10th in runs scored, 8th in doubles, and 10th in extra base hits. He was 7th in win probability added and 4th in championship win probability added. Do I know what that metric is? Not a shot, but I know that it's good. And this is where he differentiates. Everyone's having the Ohtani versus Lindor MVP debate. This is where it differs. He was 5th in fielding percentage among shortstops. So he's got the glove to match with the bat and the leadership. I mean, the fact that he's able to, take it on the chin when the team isn't doing well, and when he's able to maintain a steady head when we do have success. Shohei Ohtani doesn't have a fielding percentage because he wasn't in the field, dude. He was a DH, and he's normally a pitcher, but he didn't pitch this year because of the Tommy John. So to me, it's way more impressive. Ohtani 50-50. Yes. Never been done. Will never, there's something to be said about the new rules that favor base runners. We're seeing more stolen bases, less caught stealing. So that definitely plays a factor into it. But the guy is not in the field, and he's not putting his body on the line in the field. Right. You think about, the impact that Lindor had in terms of defensive runs saved, things of that nature. I think you have to give Lindor the edge, because if you take Ohtani out of the lineup, you don't play him with the Dodgers are still making the postseason. They're still winning. So I know it's not going to happen, but I disagree with Ohtani. It's historic. And it's hard to ignore. And people might look back and say, how the fuck did he not get MVP with those numbers? But it's like, when you're just one side of the ball, I don't know. I mean, there is a graphic. This was, this is not from the entire season, but this is from very late in the season. They looked at the comparisons between Ohtani and Lindor. Lindor is a better average with runners in scoring position by about 40 or 50 points. He has a much better average in high leverage situations, almost batting 300. His OPS in high leverage situations is almost 900 to Ohtani, who's below 800. And he's played, more than 1,200 innings on defense, and Ohtani's played 0. So to me, and, of course, I'm biased. I'm a Mets fan. But you think about it, if we don't have Francisco Lindor, we're not even sniffing the playoffs, dude. And I know we went 7-1 without him. But over the course of a season, I don't know that you can expect Acuna to put up the same kind of numbers as Lindor. And I could be totally wrong about that because Acuna was playing out of his mind, but was over a much shorter span. His 16 outs above average ranks second in the NL. We're talking about Lindor. He's had at least 30 home runs and 25 stolen bases and 100 runs scored in both 2023 and 2024. That's the first time in Major League Baseball history that a shortstop has reached those marks in consecutive seasons. You want to talk about historic? There's your history. The most single seasons extra base hits by a shortstop in New York Mets history. Reyes had 72 in 2008. Lindor had 70 in 2024. I think he surpassed that in the final week of the season because these numbers are a little outdated. And he's been spectacular in the leadoff spot, something that I don't know that I necessarily agreed with because I was like, he's like the one guy that I want up with guys on, right? He's the one guy who seems to be able to drive guys in. And when he's in the leadoff spot, nobody's on base. So that's why, and it's very rare you see guys on base with it towards the bottom of the order. So it was like, it feels like a waste with him in the leadoff spot. But he's excelled. He's also, we talked about with guys on base, right? Here's a list of Mets with 5 or more grand slams. Mike Piazza, Robin Ventura, Howard Johnson, Yoenis Cespedes, John Milner, Kevin McReynolds, Carlos Beltran, and Francisco Lindor. Now, there's something to be said about the fact that Pete Alonso is not on that list. I love Pete, but the fact that he's not on that list is tough because that means that when you have the bases loaded, you're not hitting home runs. And so that's tough. But we'll get to Alonso and what his numbers reveal in a little bit. But here's a list of shortstops that have 30 plus home runs in at least 5 seasons. The minimum of 50% of games played at shortstop. Alex Rodriguez, Juicer, Ernie Banks, legend, Francisco Lindor. The most multi-homer games by a shortstop. Alex Rodriguez, Juicer, Ernie Banks, Francisco Lindor. So, I'm going to keep going. It doesn't stop there. He's the only shortstop in Major League Baseball history to record 300 doubles, 240 home runs, and 175 stolen bases within his first 10 big league seasons. Let that marinate. When the 2024 season ends, Francisco Lindor will have made $118.3 million as a Met. And if we use Fangraph's WAR to dollar value, where each WAR, win above replacement, is worth $8 million, here's Lindor's value per year as a Met. 2021, 31.5 mil. 2022, 51 mil. 2023, 44.2 mil. In 2024 so far, because these numbers are from, I want to say early September, mid-September, 57.5 million. You add it all up, you get $184.2 million. So it's a net of plus 65.9 million. So for anyone saying that he's not worth the contract, objectively, you are incorrect. He is, and then some. And it would be, I wouldn't put it past him and his agent to come back and say, hey, we want more. But yeah, he's been worth every penny. And I know the 2021 season, he got off on the wrong foot. He just got off on the wrong foot. And people have been holding on to that for way too long. And I think you've seen it. I've seen it enough on my timeline and my news feed. Fans being like, if you're still out on this dude, you need to stop watching games. You need to turn in your Mets fan card. So I really hope he wins MVP. Unreal that he didn't. He just gets snubbed from the All-Star team. It's becoming. I almost want it to be like a funny footnote when he's inducted into the Hall of Fame. Like, was never elected to an All-Star game as a Met, even though he was putting up historic figures. Like I mentioned, the Mets. I thought they were going to take a serious tumble when Lindor was ruled out due to the back. I mean, Mets and backs, they don't go hand in hand. You had David Wright's, career obviously cut short by back issues, spinal stenosis. And so I think that was the greatest fear for a lot of Mets fans was like, and the fact that there was a fucking closed door meeting where the GM, the manager are there, and Pete Alonso is giving an impassioned speech. Like, we get a win-win for the Gipper, type situation. It was like, oh, fuck, like we might be without Lindor for this stretch and we might miss the playoffs. And even if we get in the playoffs, we're to not have Lindor. That's like, whoa. And we were able to step up. The Mets, Jose Iglesias and Luis Angel Acuna went 27 for 64. That's a 422 batting average with 4 homers, 4 doubles, a triple, 14 runs scored, and 8 RBIs. So I guess whatever Pete said in that meeting really resonated with Candelita and our top prospect. So yeah, that's Lindor. Lindor has been our top player. It is incredible. Like, you see him slide into home and then he's on all fours crawling towards the dugout. I mean, this guy is giving everything he's got in the tank for us. Get the fuck on board with this guy. So good. What is preventing you from fully embracing him and loving him and supporting him? The guy has been just unbelievable for us. He's providing like big moments and big memories, which you can't say as much for Pete Alonso, at least in 2024. And yet Pete is, people are starting to sour on Pete big time after this season. But I don't know. I feel like, anyway, can you guess who's number 2 in WAR on the Mets in 2024? I don't think you can. Fucking Mark Vientos. He led the team in slugging percentage. Here's a short list of third basemen in Mets history with 25 home run seasons: David Wright, Howard Johnson, Robin Ventura, Mark Vientos. And he only did it in less than 400 at-bats. He has the highest weighted runs created plus among players playing in their age 24 younger season in 2024 with a minimum of 350 plate appearances. He's in, this is the company we're talking about. These names probably sound familiar if you're a big baseball fan. Bobby Witt Jr., Gunnar Henderson, Mark Vientos. Here are Vientos' ranks among National League third basemen since May 15th, with a minimum of 150 at-bats. He's first in home runs, second in RBIs, and first in OPS. At 24 years and 270 days old, Mark Vientos is the youngest player in Mets history with a multi-home run game, including a walk-off homer. And it took me a very long time, and it probably took a lot of people a long time to get on board with Mark Vientos. He'd have a good week, a good game, a good week, and he'd be like, "Oh, we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're ready for the downfall," and it never came. He just kept playing at a really elite level. We're talking top 5 at his position in the league. He wasn't the starter to start the season. We had Brett Beatty. Do you remember all the way back to April? Like, it's crazy that people were shouting from the mountaintops, get this guy more playing time, get this guy more playing time. And I kept saying, yeah, but when he looks okay when we get him in there. Liability at third with the glove, and then, can hit the ball hard, but is not consistent. And then it was just like where would we be in this season without him? There was several game-winning clutch hits that he had. And the power that he has is just unreal. So yeah, you found your franchise third baseman. I mean, I'm hoping it's not one of those situations where an Ike Davis situation where he just it's a one and done type campaign. I don't think that's the case. But the amount of relief that gives to this fan base is massive. And then number 3 in WAR. I don't even think you're going to get this one. Jose Iglesias. Among seasons in which he had 200 or more plate appearances, 2024 was his best in batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, and OPS plus. He had the highest WAR of his career due to the highest offensive WAR of his career by a very large amount. There was a 20-game, he has like a 22-game hit streak going on. Over that hit streak, he's batting over 400 with an OPS around 1,000. Here's a list of Mets players that have the highest average in their first 73 games with the club with a minimum of 200 plate appearances. It's Jeff McNeil, Moises Alou, Mike Piazza, Roger Cedeno, Jose Iglesias. The highest OPS by a Met in their first 8 career games. And this is where Acuna starts to come in, right? So Iglesias, it feels like whenever we are down and out, he's the guy to pick us up. I mean, the number of clutch hits this guy has had in comebacks, come from behind wins, rally starters, 2 outs, men in running scoring position. This guy, Iglesias, has been like stellar, dude. I'm running out of words to describe the guy. He's just a goddamn movement. He's just like, he cannot be stopped. What a year. I mean, like, I don't know that you can top this year if you're Jose Iglesias. You have a chart trending song that becomes like the theme song for your team, singing it at the friggin' All-Star game and having just a career year, helping your team make it to the postseason. Like, it's just unbelievable. But, Acuna, his contributions, I mean, we can't understate that, right? The highest OPS by a Met in their first 8 career games. Number 1 is Daniel Murphy in 2008, which I do not remember. And then Luis Angel Acuna in 2024. 3 home runs in his first 24 plate appearances. In his first 6 games, he was batting over 400 with an OPS of over 1,300. He had +2 defensive runs saved and +1 outs above average. There have only been 3 Mets that have recorded at least 7 hits and 2 home runs in their first big league games, 5 big league games. The list is weird. Dave Schneck, Mike Jacobs, Lieutenant Mike Jacobs, Corporal, and Luis Angel Acuna. My God, 2005 Mike Jacobs. Was it like a Rico Bronya-esque type frenzy fad in New York? I remember that. I mean, the future's looking really good. For so long, this Mets franchise and this Mets organization has never really had a future, if you know what I mean. What do I mean by that? Well, in terms of like bringing guys up through our farm system, having our top prospects not just pan out and become starters, but become top-notch good starters that look like cornerstones, guys that are going to be part of your team for years and years to come. And we have that now. And Francisco Alvarez behind the dish, Mark Vientos at third, Luis Angel Acuna at short or second, depending on where you want to go with it. And don't rule out Ronnie Mauricio, the lost prodigal son. I mean, like, he missed all of the season, but he showed up and provided a spark towards the end of last season. And I think he'll come back and even play better heading into 2025. So really good to see. In terms of the infield, outfield might be a slightly different story in our pitching staff. Speaking of pitching staff, number 4 in WAR for 2024, Sean Manaea. He led the team in wins and strikeouts. He had the lowest whip Among starters, he's tied for the most wins of his career. He had the highest winning percentage of his career, the lowest ERA among seasons in which he had more than 5 starts, and the most innings pitched of his career, the second most strikeouts. But as we all know, walks are still a big issue. In terms of ranks across the majors, he was 10th in WHIP and 6th in home runs per 9. And he had the most starts of at least 7 innings pitched by a Met this season, just edging out Luis Severino. Manaea has pitched at least 6 2/3 innings in 8 straight starts. He's the first Mets pitcher to do that since Jacob deGrom in 2019. And then according to StatHead, only 2 pitchers have recorded a streak of at least 7 consecutive games with 6 2/3 or more innings pitched with no more than 4 hits allowed. And that would be Johan Santana in 2004 and then Sean Manaea in 2024. There was an 18-game stretch where Sean Manaea had a WHIP under 1 and an ERA of 2.7. He went 8-2 in those starts. And his ranks at one point, I don't know if he ended up with these ranks, but he was tied for second in games started, was 4th in wins probability added, 5th in WHIP, 6th in ERA, 6th in ERA plus, 7th in strikeouts, 9th in innings, and 12th, tied for 12th in wins. And a large part of his success, I think we briefly mentioned it in another episode, but was him adjusting his arm slot. Not coming as much over the top, dropping down a little bit more, but it was also his sinker. His sinker whiff percentage through his first 20 starts of the season was 18.9%, but over his last 9 starts, it went up to 26%. So the sinker has been he's also been throwing more up in the zone. So coming down from a lower arm angle, lower slot, but then also going up in the zone has contributed to his success. He's also the first lefty Mets pitcher with 11 or more strikeouts and no walks allowed in a road start since Sid Fernandez in 1989. Woo! And where would we be without this next player? Next player with the highest WAR, 5th in WAR on the 2024 Mets, David Peterson. Holy shit! He had the best season of his career by far, the most wins and the highest win percentage, most innings pitched, lowest ERA, highest ERA plus, lowest WHIP, and the lowest home runs per 9 and the lowest walks per 9. And a huge reason for his success this year has to be getting off to a good start. In the first inning, in his first 4 seasons, he had like a ERA of almost 6. And then his ERA in the first inning of 2024 is below 0.5. There was a point where he had the lowest ERA in the National League amongst pitchers with a minimum of 90 innings pitched, to 2.75, just behind Zach Wheeler and Chris Sale. He also had, in terms of second half ERA among National League pitchers, he was tied with Wheeler and just behind Paul Skenes. So, you want to talk about stepping up when we needed him most. We had Christian Scott come up. He looks kind of promising. We lose him for the season. We acquire Paul Blackburn, hoping that Blackburn can be the answer or at least stabilize the rotation. He gives us some solid outings, but then we lose him for an extended period of time. So we really needed David Peterson and Tylor Megill to come in and help us out, to keep us our heads above water. And my God, they were phenomenal. Now, Megill was not in the top 12 in WAR, but I thought I would just rattle off some of his stats because they are pretty impressive. Over his last 5 starts, hasn't lost a game, has an ERA under 2, WHIP under 1, and he's lowered his ERA from above 5 to below 4. And here's a list of Mets to post the following in a road start: 0 runs, no more than 1 hit, and 9 or more strikeouts. Tom Seaver, Sid Fernandez, Max Scherzer, Tylor Megill. So, we said that Megill and Peterson would have to be the guys to fill in and step up. We had question marks about them. Historically, when we've asked them to kind of put the pressure on them and have them carry some of the workload, they were faltered or were inconsistent. That's not the case heading down the stretch, heading into the postseason. Peterson and Megill have been phenomenal. Next up in the WAR, next highest WAR will be Pete Alonso. So I think everyone can agree this is probably one of his worst seasons, if not his worst season as a Met. Now, was it a disastrous season? No, I'm not going to go that far. But he's been, he's now in his sixth season. This is his sixth season in the majors. He did lead the team in home runs, just edging out Lindor with 34. He did have the most doubles on the team. He played every single game, which is important. I think he takes pride in that, and he wanted to show up for his team and be that kind of reliable presence. But he had the lowest RBI total among full seasons, not counting 2020, the COVID-shortened season, lowest slugging percentage, lowest OPS, lowest OPS plus, lowest total bases, lowest home run percentage, and the lowest win probability added. So in a contract year, he didn't do, I don't think he increased his value, and I think he might have decreased his total haul when all things are said and done. There are a lot of people talking about, this could be his final home game, and then we got to get out to support Pete in his final home game. A lot of signs around the ballpark supporting him, showing their support. I just don't. And I see fans that want to move on from him, fans that have historically loved Pete, that want to move on from him and think that he's on the decline or that he's just not, he's not what we need at first base. And I'm here to say, no, I think we need to lock him up at a reasonable price, because I do think, I don't know if I would say the heart and soul of the team. I want to, because he does care so goddamn much. But he might have a tendency to press too much, and he might have a tendency to get too down on himself. And he just hasn't really been that clutch of late. So, but to give up on him after this kind of season, I don't agree. In terms of the most seasons with 30 or more home runs in Mets history, you have Pete Alonso at number 1 with 5, and then Mike Piazza with 4. Alonso now ranks alone in third place on the Mets all-time homer list behind Strawberry and Wright. He might have actually passed Wright. I have to look at the updated numbers on that, but you give him that next contract, he's going to be the number 1 Met in all-time home runs, which I think that stuff, like, he's not all about the money. And I'm sure the agent is probably pressing on the money more than he is. And, I think he switched agents at one point, but I think legacy is big with Pete. We've talked about legacy with, it's not baseball related, but with Saquon Barkley, with a lot of modern day athletes. I don't know that they give a fuck about legacy, especially with one franchise or team. I think Pete does. I think he really does love the Mets. And I do think they get a deal done. And I do think he cements himself. And I think they eventually retire his number. He gets in the Mets Hall of Fame. Whether or not he gets in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But if he continues to pump out 30 home run seasons for the next 5 seasons, kind of hard to ignore. You look at his numbers to start off his career. Now, he started his career later on in life. He wasn't like a 21-year-old entering the majors. But like, his numbers to start off his career are akin to Albert Pujols. Problem is, Pujols started when he was like 21, 22. So just keep plugging away, Pete. And I hope Stearns, I know he doesn't want to make emotional decisions. And I think that's how most teams get fucked, is by making emotional decisions. I'm an emotional person. I make emotional decisions, especially when it comes to my sports teams. But this one also feels solid from a business standpoint. It'll be one thing if we're going to give him the bank and he's our only player. We have something here. We've found a winning formula. And Alonso is a big part of that, despite what people are saying in terms of like his clutchness and his ability to hit the breaking balls. But I honestly think that he'll be back, and I think it's only going to get better for him from a team standpoint. Maybe not the personal numbers, maybe not stack up like he would hope. But I think if he can just consistently give us these kind of seasons, even though this is a down season, I would much rather take this over what we had before. Put it that way. Next up, in terms of top players, Mets players in 2024 by WAR, Jose Quintana. He had the second. I will say this. He's not what he was with the White Sox, that 4 or 5 year stretch with the White Sox where he was an all-star and he was, one of the game's top pitchers. But you can't, I don't know that you can ask for a better quality starter in his, I think he's 34 now, 35 at his age to get the kind of quality starts that we're getting is good. Now, we've been talking about his control issues for a lot of the year. He had the second most walks of his career and the most hits batsmen. So the control has been an issue. But he did have his highest WAR since 2016. But he also had his highest fly ball percentage of his career, which that can be tough. Want to keep it on the ground, I think. He had among the lowest hard hit percentages and lowest exit velocities. So guys are not hitting him hard, right? I think the issue is you get behind in counts. You walk guys, you hit guys, and then it puts the pressure on you to get out of a jam. So people are not hitting the ball hard. It's just he's got to spot a little bit better. But he had the second lowest batting average on balls in play among his 13 seasons as his pitcher. So when the ball does go in play, it's usually an out. So it's a matter of like, hey, if that's the case, my guy, let's throw some strikes. So here's a list of pitchers in Mets history with an ERA lower than .30 in a 5-start span. And it's a doozy. The Degrominator, R.A. Dickey, Cy Young winner. Doctor, the good doctor, Dr. K, Dwight Gooden, Jerry Koosman, and Jose Quintana. So that's some elite company in terms of, at least in Mets history. Yeah, there was a 5-start stretch where he had won 4 of the 5 games started, didn't lose, had an ERA of .28, whip of .88, and he lowered his ERA by almost a full run. He had a scoreless streak of more than 23 innings. He had the best ERA among starting pitchers since late August. So, it sucked that his first season with the Mets was injury riddled and we didn't get to see a lot of them. But ever since then, I think you feel good. Not great, but you feel good having Quintana on the mound. You're like, okay, I think we have a shot this game. Next up would be Brandon Nimmo. He's in his 9th season. He had the most RBIs of his career at 90. Would you believe me if I told you that the next most RBIs that Nimmo had in a season was 68? And I guess that goes hand in hand with being the leadoff hitter, which he was for a majority of his tenure. He's been kind of the leadoff hitter. But that is astounding to see that. And I guess that's a case of, they figured it out. They take a look and they say, hey, this guy's wasted at the top of the lineup. But I guess you could say the same about Lindor. So I don't know. He did have the most stolen bases of his career. 15 of 15, never got caught stealing in 2024. And I would like to see him try and steal some more bases. I think that has been my one note about Brandon Nimmo throughout his career is how is this guy only stealing 3 bases, 5 bases, 9 bases? Why is he not a 30 for 30 guy? I don't think he'll ever be a 30 for 30 guy, but I think he can be a 20 and 20 guy. I think that's, I'll take that all day. And with the new rules and with stolen bases going up, I'd like to see him try more. I think he picks his spots, but it's I think he has pretty decent speed and wheels. So I'd like to see him try more. It's the first time he's had more than double-digit stolen bases in a season. He did have the lowest on-base percentage, the second lowest slugging percentage, OPS and OPS plus of his career. And it was his worst season as a starter in WAR. But he did have the highest exit velocity and the second highest hard hit percentage, along with the highest win probability added and championship win probability added. So, yeah, a little bit of a downturn in some respects for Nimmo, but I think there was a case where we were talking about him being snubbed from the All-Star team. We thought he should have been an All-Star right around the All-Star break. I remember talking about that and saying, I think people are underestimating or underrating Nimmo. And then he had his struggles here and there in the second half. But I think that especially after what we saw in Atlanta in game 1 of the doubleheader with that huge clutch home run, the guy's got energy, enthusiasm, and it's infectious if you allow it to be. And I love that he's on this team, and I hope he should be a lifelong Met. And he's going to be one of those guys that we look back on and say, we didn't appreciate Brandon Nimmo enough when he was here. Next up was Jose Butto at number 9, ninth highest WAR on the team. In 30 games, he went 7-3 with a 2.55 ERA, started 7 games, finished 5 games, had 3 saves, a ERA plus 155, a whip of around 1, 5 hits per 9 innings, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings. So you want to talk about, I opened this episode by saying there were a lot of players, a lot of key contributors that were not on our radar for the most part at the beginning of the season or before the season or in the off season. Like, these are the guys that are going to step up and make a difference. And you look at it, Vientos, Iglesias, Butto, Peterson. At one point we're talking about, well, if, with Kodai down and Christian gone and Blackburn out, like, is Butto going to be the guy that comes up and start? And it's like we could start him and feel good about it. But I think he has been a tremendous boon for the bullpen. So that's going to be the guy that I think they're going to lean on. They're going to lean on him a lot, especially in high leverage situations. And Diaz had a really great September minus 2 games, I want to say. 1 or 2 games. So, my God, considering all the twists and turns that our bullpen has provided us with this year. May, the reason that, we talked about it, the reason that we had such a shitty record in May was because of all the blown saves and blown leads, like 8 or 9 games, most in the majors. So, the fact that he was able to help stabilize that bullpen was super helpful. And then next up on the list, I don't think you're going to get it. I don't think you're going to come close. Tyrone Taylor. You better call Tyrone. In his 6th season, he had the most doubles, tied for the most triples, most stolen bases, and the highest batting average of his career. 2nd most total bases of his career. He had a career high WAR, which is not too shabby for a part-time player. He had a 5-game stretch where he's batting almost 400 with an OPS of almost 1,200, 3 doubles, a homer, 2 RBIs, 3 runs, a stolen base. He has really stepped up to the point where in a big must-win game, they started him over Bader. While Bader I think he has a career high in RBIs this year, like 50 or 60 RBIs, which is a career high for Bader. So offensively, he's kind of gone above and beyond what we've expected from him. And defensively, he's also been huge for us. I think even to talk about defensive runs saved or at least fielding percentage in center field, Bader is one of the best. But in terms of providing a spark, clutch hitting, Tyrone Taylor has really been incredible. So I think he could be an X factor in the playoffs. And then at number 11, we got Louis Severino in his 9th season. It's the most starts that he's had since 2018. It was a pretty rough stretch from 2019 to 2023 for him. He just kind of got back into the groove of things last season. He hasn't had 20 starts since 2018 when he was an all-star. And then there was a 6-game stretch. I think this was before the Atlanta game, where in those 6 games, he had 3 wins, no losses, 2.35 ERA, and a whip of 1.1. And much like David Peterson, Luis Severino's success could be attributed to his getting off to a good start. In the first inning this year, he's only allowed 3 earned runs and 5 walks with 34 strikeouts and has given up an ERA of 0.93. So, more times than not, if Louis can get off to a good first inning, a little 1-2-3 action, set him up, stand them up, sit them down. You got to feel good about our chances to win. There was a graphic. This is from Major League Baseball Network, but in the last 2 seasons, so last season with the Yankees and then this season with the Mets, just a stark difference, drastic difference between his productivity. Last year at the Yankees, he was 4-8, ERA of 6.65, only threw 90 innings, 79 strikeouts, WHIP of 1.65, and opponent's OPS was over 900. And then you look at this year, this was before the most recent starts, but 9-6, 3.84 ERA, 122 strikeouts, WHIP of 1.24, and opponent's OPS of 0.686. So, and he's our guy in game 1. So, I think we'll have a pretty good idea of where things are headed in that first inning. If he comes out, strikes out 2 guys, strikes out the side, or at least gets a 1-2-3, doesn't walk anyone, I think you got to feel good about our prospects. And then number 12 was Jeff McNeil. Remember that guy? What a crazy year for Jeff. I don't know if he'll be, I have not heard anything about his availability for the playoffs. I know that he said he was done for the regular season, but I think he said something about he could come back from the playoffs. So that option is still there. Although, considering what you got cooking with your current infield, maybe you slot him in the outfield if you feel like Marte is not up to, it's like right now your hot hands are Nimmo, Taylor, and then would you go Marte or McNeil? That's where I could see him maybe getting some innings, but maybe not starting, but maybe a bat off the bench seems to be where he would fit in the most. He could be like the pinch hitter that really changes the tide, in terms of this wild card series or even further down the road. So if you look at our head-to-head record against all the teams in the majors, I won't go through them all, but in terms of playoff teams, like our best head-to-head record was against the Nationals, 11-2. Holy shit. We didn't have anywhere near this success against any other team in the majors. So thank you, Washington. But 6-7 against Atlanta. I think there are 1 or 2 games here or there where you could have said, if we could have that back, we could have the 5 seed. We'd be going to San Diego. And why San Diego? I mentioned this before because we're 5-2 against San Diego. Winning 5-7 against San Diego is huge. Although we did face them before they got ultra hot. I think there was a time maybe after we faced them in August into September where both San Diego and Arizona were on fire, and then Arizona just kind of spiraled out of control, lost all their steam. I mentioned we're 1-5 against Milwaukee, so it's like of the playoff teams that I'm least happy to face, it's Milwaukee. But you dispense them in the wild card round, and you got to feel really good going forward. It's like if you can conquer the beast, you can conquer the curse, you can get past this one squad that has given you such fucking fits, not just this year, but of recent history. I'll give you the preview in a little bit. Our head-to-heads against them, it's not pretty. But that's why it's like if you can, it's almost better to face Milwaukee now because you get past them, you're taking down everyone else. There's no question in my mind. We're 6-7 against Philly. There were a couple of games there where we probably should have won. So I'm not as scared of Philly, at least in innings 1-7, as I think some other people are. And we were 2-4 against the Dodgers. So not great against the Dodgers. But again, that last Dodgers loss where we got blown out is where the season changed. That's when the team meeting happened at the end of May, right around Memorial Day weekend. And that's when we decided to pick ourselves up and decide to win the whole damn thing. So, in terms of like the bracket, you get past the Brew Crew, and then you get to take down Philadelphia. And if I had my druthers, I mean, as awesome as it would be to see us like take down the number 1 seed in the Dodgers, I kind of want revenge on the Padres. I don't know. I really want to face them this postseason. So, but you gotta win the wild card series first. So with that, let's preview the wild card series versus the Milwaukee Brew Crew. The all-time series is knotted at 86, and God damn it, if that's not an omen. If that is not a sign from the heavens above that we're going to win this series, I don't know what is. Well, we started playing the Brewers in 1998. That's when they made the jump from the American League to the National League. And we pretty much owned them from 98 to 2009. There were only, let's see here. So in those 12 seasons, there were only 5 where we didn't win the series, and we never lost a series. So from 1998 to 2009, 12 seasons, we never lost a series to the Brewers. Things changed in 2010. From 2010 to 2024, we have only won the series twice. So in 14 seasons, we've only won the series twice. And those were in the 2 playoff years. 2016, 2022. The other season that we did not lose, we tied, was in 2015, the year we went to the World Series. So it's been pretty rough sledding against Milwaukee, especially in Milwaukee. So that's why it's like, kind of wish we made a little bit of better effort in game 2 of the doubleheader against Atlanta, kick them out of the playoffs, and then go to San Diego as opposed to Milwaukee. But swallow the frog, as they say in the business world. Tackle your toughest task first, and the Brewers are by far, if you go by head-to-head this year, our toughest opponent. We've scored, as I mentioned, we're 1-5 against the Brewers in 2024. We've scored one or fewer runs in 4 of the 6 games. Our only win came in a game where I honestly don't think that Milwaukee was trying anymore, and we were also 1-6 against them last year. So, history would say not great. Then again, I forget who was saying it, but in 2015, I think the Cubs owned us in 2015, the regular season, and then we swept them in the NLCS. So, I hate to keep bringing up Giants football, but you look at 07, I think we lost twice to the Cowboys in the regular season and beat them in the postseason. We lost to the Packers in the regular season, beat them in the postseason. I think it happened in 2011. So regular season doesn't necessarily is a good indicator of what will happen in the postseason. I mean, you look at even in 2022, Atlanta 100 some odd wins in the regular season, and they didn't make it to the NLCS. So it's a whole new ball game, whole new season once October hits, baby. So game 1, we got Luis Severino against Freddie Peralta. Severino is 3-1 in his last 7 starts. The loss to Atlanta, not a great outing. Was his first loss in 7 starts. And, hopefully he's able to right the ship, get his head right. He's 0-1 with a no decision in his last 2 starts against Milwaukee. He had 1 start against them this year, 1 start against them last year. The only time he faced Milwaukee this year was on March 30th. That was the second day of the regular season. And he gave up 11 hits and 6 runs over 5 innings. Now, only 3 of those 6 runs were earned. So I do think defensively we have gotten significantly better as the season has gone on. I think you look at just what Lindor has been able to do, even Acuna in his stead. Iglesias, we talk about him offensively being such a spark plug. Defensively, he's made some outstanding plays. Even Pete makes some really great heads up plays, more so than you would expect. Vientos has been fairly reliable at the hot corner. And, center, our outfield, I think Nimmo is okay. Center field is probably our best position defensively. And then Marte, though, fielding wise, might be somewhat of a risk. He's like among the league leaders in defensive assists. So the guy can throw. If it comes down to it's a 1-1 game where we're all tied up, scoring, go ahead runs on third, fly ball to right, I would want Marte there. Although you look at what Tyrone Taylor has done in right field, and he's got a pretty decent arm, and I think he threw out Olsen at second the one game, so he's got a pretty decent arm too. So it's like, if you want guys to score on hits the outfield, maybe stay away from right field because Marte and Taylor have got it pretty much on lock there. So yeah. Meanwhile, Peralta pitched against us on opening day, gave up 1 earned run and 1 hit while striking out 8 over 6 innings pitched to get the win. So, if you're going based just on numbers, head-to-heads, matchups of that kind, you're probably going to think, yeah, looks like the Brewers take this one, especially in Milwaukee, where we have not had very little success. But again, if Severino comes out and he dominates in the first inning, Lindor kind of kicks things off with a hit against Peralta. Could be, if you can steal game 1, it's huge. A 5-game series, that's huge. So, the pitching has been solid for us for all of September, for most of September. First in ERA, first in WAR, first in home runs per 9, opponent's average whip. So I think if the pitchers can continue to give us these strong, solid outings, we got a chance. And then it comes down to our bullpen. And right now, we mentioned Jose Butto. Phil Maton doesn't get the kind of credit that he deserves, I don't think. We acquired him a couple weeks before the trade deadline. I want to say it was in June or like early July. And he's at a whip under 1. The opponents are batting less than 200 against them. He's only given up 1 home run, I think. ERA is around 2. So, and his fastball has picked up. Splitter is gross. So, I think Maton is going to be another, unsung hero that we can look to after the series and say, man, where would we be without him? So I know didn't exactly give us the kind of outing we wanted against Atlanta in that last game, but up to that had been a pretty solid guy, pretty solid dude. And then I mentioned Edwin Diaz's success in September, barring that meltdown in Atlanta in game 161, he had an ERA of below 1, 17 strikeouts, 4 saves. So it's important to, can he continue that? I think him not cowering from the spotlight and him deciding to be more vocal and adamant about I got this is huge, and I know whenever we talk about pitchers doing that, we think back to Matt Harvey in the World Series, telling Terry Collins to fuck off, and then him giving up the game tying or game winning runs against the Royals. But there's something to be said about a guy that's like, I know I let you down, but I can make up for it. And I got this. And to go out and do it even better. And if you can carry that over to this series, that could be the difference maker. And then I saw this. What a wild turn of events in terms of moves, right? We thought we had signed Carlos Correa. He ended up signing for 12 years, $315 million. And now we have Mark Vientos, who has a salary of less than $600,000. We're talking about Yoshi. We were in the running to sign Yoshi Yamamoto. He signs for 12 years, $325 million. Instead, we get Luis Severino and Sean Manaea, both for 3 years, $41 million. And they have both been spectacular pitching, as we mentioned, career years. We wanted Craig Counsell as our manager. He ends up signing for 5 years, $40 million. We ended up getting Carlos Mendoza for 3 years, $4.5 million, almost a tenth of what Counsell would cost. So the Mets, say what you will about Billy Epler, but him and Stearns, I think, have, Epler particularly learned a lesson with Scherzer and Verlander, and I think Steve Cohen had a lot to do with that. But Stearns specifically, but also Epler, have done a pretty amazing job of not going for the big splash and saying, like, is this worth it? Let me work it. Let me put my thing down, flip it, and reverse it. You know what I'm saying? I think they've done a really great job of seeing, like, okay, we don't need to break the bank here. And that's kind of what I was advocating for, in the offseason. I was like, let's not go after the big name guys. Let's just go after guys that are consistent, dependable, not expensive, but you feel good about giving you a chance to win, that don't necessarily have to dominate, but that give you a better chance to win. And they did. And it's paid off. We were not supposed to be competitive this season. We're in the fucking playoffs. So it came down to the wire for us to get in the playoffs, right? We all know that. Clinched it on game 161, which is I think the latest that we've ever clinched. There have been 3 other times in Mets history where it's come down to the wire. 2016, we clinched a wild card spot on the second to last day of the regular season, October 1st. That was the famous home run by the ass man, Asdrubal Cabrera, where he did that iconic bat flip. I think I lost my goddamn gourd when that happened. And then the 1999 season, where we secured a wild card berth by playing a 1-game playoff against the Reds on October 4th after the season had concluded. I want to say Al Leiter was our starter in that game, pitched a gem. And then the 73 season, we won the NL East on the final day of the regular season on October 1st with a record of just 82-79. Oh, interesting. We finished with a record of 83-79. So yeah, that's the Mets. Let's go Mets, dude. I mean, what? I can't remember a season that had more memes, more moments, more rallying cries, more catalysts, things that propelled us and drove us from Wiener to the Rally Pimp to the Grimace, OMG, the Glizz Dog. It's just like, it's just so much seems to be coming together, I've been a Mets fan for a long time, and we weren't supposed to win game 1 like that. That's not supposed to happen. We're not supposed to have that happen. I had tweeted it out. There's no team in professional sports that will rip your soul through your chest more than the New York Mets. And I thought that was happening. I thought, oh my God, we're going to lose this game. And then somehow we're going to be so rattled that in game 2, we're not going to show up and we're going to lose to like their 4th stringers. Like, it was just, I snowballed for sure. I avalanched big time. But this is not your old Mets. They're not your daddy's Mets, not your grandpappy's Mets. These are Francisco Lindor's Mets. The kind of guys that are refuse to say die, that fight back, that show resilience and grit. It's all the things that you would want in a team. And I am more, and I think most people will say this, I'm more excited about this postseason than I was the 2022 postseason, considering how that regular season ended with us getting swept by the Braves, having our 3 top dudes roll out there on the mound and getting swept by them, losing the division, not celebrating with champagne, and then going in and losing to the Padres. I don't think that's going to happen this year. This is different. Like 2016 was just wild. It was just like, we have no right to be in the postseason. We have so many injuries. We have guys stepping up left and right that like we're just winning ball games somehow with a skeleton crew. and we snuck in, and we had the one game wild card playoff with the Giants that that was kind of excruciating. But this team has somewhat of the magic of the 2015 team, I think. And they, and it was even talked about on the broadcast, coming down the stretch, like guys that were around in 2022 in the playoff run admit that they got tight. The pressure got to them. And they claim they have learned from it. And if we're to judge by that one game in Atlanta where they come back and win 8-7, if that's to be believed, then fucking look out, National League, and look out baseball fans, because we don't just gotta believe. We are in belief mode. It is 100% belief mode right now. And we're going to be a fucking threat. So that's the Mets. Let's go, Mets. Let's go, Mets. OMG. OMG. From 0-5 to OMG. What a call by Gary Cohen. So when will the next episode be? Well, probably after the wild card series. After a wild card series win, we'll recap that and then preview the next round. Or we could be lamenting. I don't think we will be. I got hope. Hope floats. So we'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. LGM, dude. LGM for life.